I'm doing well. How are you? You hanging in there?
I am, and you must be so excited, but welcome to Cut the BS. That's basically our blog. We try to empower those with diabetes, live their best life and enjoy every moment the way you and I do.
Absolutely.
Great. So I was just thinking about, we connected years and years ago. I ended up on your episode of IndyCar 36. Telling you about my story of
That's
how
right.
went into DKA and woke up thinking, oh, I hope they gave me Novolog, because that's what Charlie uses.
I love that. I like ideal.
Right? So, all right, I'm pretty much just going to get into the questions so that our fans get to know you much better. So, Charlie, you are about to begin your 10th season as a driver with NTT IndyCar series, and your 12th season as ambassador for Novo Nordisk's Race with Insulin program. Can you tell our fans a bit about your journey and what it's been like so far?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Not only in the IndyCar series, but the partnership with Novo Nordisk and Race with Insulin has been really rewarding for me, because it's allowed me to meet a lot of different people with diabetes, type 1, type 2, hear their stories and share my story. And I think one of the things that I've drawn a lot of strength from is that sense of community that comes together with that sharing of stories, that, oh, I do this, I do that, you do this, you do that. There's so many parallels, even if they're not a racing driver or not a professional athlete or not a business person, whatever it is, there are always these great connections that grow from that. And to be starting my 10th season in IndyCar is pretty special. It's quite it's been a fun career, and I know it's starting a little later this year than normal, but I'm excited to get back on track.
I'm very excited as well. So as a fellow T1D, I was diagnosed much later than you. How old were you at diagnosis, and what were your thoughts on your racing career at that point?
So I was 22 when I was diagnosed back in 2007. And at that point, I'd already fallen in love with racing. And I didn't want to let that diagnosis of diabetes get in the way of me living my dream. So it was not a question of, oh, what am I going to do now? It was a question of, how am I going to do this? What challenges do I need to overcome to figure out how to get back in the car and get back racing?
Sounds great. And so your treatment, right? So we all have our own treatment plans and treatment setups. What's your treatment setup like inside and outside of the car?
Well, with all of the fireproof gear that I wear in the cockpit in the heat, it's not really feasible for me to wear a pump. So
Okay.
I use a basal bolus program with pens. I use the Dexcom G6 as a continuous glucose monitor. So that, and in the car, the way that changes is that my receiver actually plugs into the car's data system. So I get my blood glucose, my blood sugar right there on the steering wheel, just like I get speed and lap time. But most of the time, that's just kind of an idea of where I am. It doesn't really, I don't need to make any adjustments or change, because the preparation before I get in the car, my pre-race meal, my hydration, all of it's weighed and measured, my pre-race bolus for that meal, all weighed, measured, counted out, so that when I get in the cockpit, all I've got to think about is racing.
And so do you have someone outside of the car in the pit who reads the numbers and makes decisions for you, or is that something you guys discuss over the communication there?
It's a team choice. It's a team decision. Just like IndyCar is a team sport. I can't start the car without my crew, and I can't get on track without the mechanics. Can't get through a pit stop without their help. It's a conversation and an education from my side, especially being with AJ Foyt Racing and a new team this year, educating the engineers and the strategist, Larry Foyt, on what those numbers look like, what those numbers mean, and what that means for them radioing to me. They know I'm keeping an eye on it, but if they need to remind me to check it or see what's going on as well, then they need to know the background and what my foundations are for it.
So your dad used to also keep your numbers. Is he still involved in that piece of it?
He is when he comes to the racetrack. He doesn't travel to nearly as many races. And when my wife is there, she keeps an eye on those numbers. And when we have friends or family that are a part of my treatment plan, it's always nice to have that extra set of eyes. But this weekend at Texas Motor Speedway, because of the restrictions and everybody without having any fans and only essential personnel at the racetrack, none of those people are there. So I've gotten the opportunity to educate my team a little bit more on what they're looking for.
That's very cool. I mean, it's something extra that they're learning too. And it must be interesting for them on that end to see how much data goes into it on our end as the person with diabetes, right?
And the amount of data that the race car produces, and then the amount of data that my body produces. I mean, during a race weekend, we look at graphs after every session, and they have a hard drive with terabytes of data that come out of the race car. But I'm using the same body data from my CGM and my insulin doses and my blood sugars and my workouts and information from Dr. Peters, my endocrinologist, and my exercise physiologist, and all of these different groups coming together to help elevate my treatment and my performance as an athlete.
And performance, for sure.
Exactly.
Yes, it's always great to have that plus one in our life that helps us with our numbers and making the decisions as incrementally large or small as they are, right?
And sometimes it's nice to just have that sanity check, like, hey, you know me, what's going on here? That's always helpful.
Sometimes I actually enjoy hanging out with T1D moms, because then they can just tell me, like, how many units is this thing I'm about to eat, because I'm tired of counting right now.
Yeah, it's amazing how T1D moms seem to be moms to anybody with diabetes, not just their kids. Maybe that's just a mom thing, but
I think it's a little bit of both. They've gotten used to it over the years, and then their T1D grows up, and then I don't, and I let them take care of me.
Perfect.
All right, let's get to this weekend. So Genesis 300 at Texas Motor Speedway is fast approaching, and effectively it's going to be our season opener for this year, yeah?
Yes, and it's strange to be starting the 2020 IndyCar season in June, and on an oval, under the lights at the high-speed, super speedway that is Texas Motor Speedway. I was excited to start the season in March at St. Pete. It's nice that they've rescheduled that race to the end of the season, so we still get to go put on the show through the streets of St. Petersburg. But the other really neat thing about this weekend is Saturday night we'll be live on primetime on NBC. So the IndyCar race will be live 8 o'clock Eastern, prime time, regular NBC. Usually we'd be on NBCSN, the sports network, but to be on NBC and cable, one of the first few live sports out there running, it's going to be exciting. Saturday is going to be a busy day with practice, qualifying, and a 200-lap race, but it's going to be a lot of fun too.
It's going to be fun to watch all three of that going on back to back, and of course the results. I'm super eager. We've been eagerly awaiting the start of the season. Not only that, just with just a lot of sporting events in general have been put to a halt. So, seeing actual action go on track, we're all very eager and excited to watch, for sure. So speaking of the off season, this has been a longer off season than normal. So how have you been preparing for the delayed 2020 season? Physically, mentally? Have you been on sim riding or anything like that?
So all my friends will tell you I'm terrible at video games. And so the sim racing, I didn't have any of the equipment. And our family just expanded. We had a son back in March. So I got a bit of an unexpected paternity leave, which was really nice. And a silver lining to this sort of stay-at-home order was we got to shelter in place as a new family of 4, which was a lot of fun. But at the same time, I was able to keep up with my training in a temporary garage gym If it was riding my bike on a stationary trainer or rowing, I borrowed some weights from Pitfit Training, my gym before everything shut down. So I was able to really focus on my fitness. And we did a little more nutritional based cooking. We sort of did a lot to try and support ourselves here at home and stay healthy, knowing that I wasn't going to be traveling as much for the first couple of months and working out really hard. I made sure to stay active, but also fuel my body with the right things on the backside too.
For sure. Now, with that, were you still able to connect to other IndyCar drivers through Pitfit Training? Like, do you guys do Pitfit Zooms or anything?
We did a couple, and one of the big
Nice.
things that we got into, especially I think Tony Kanaan has gotten us all addicted, is it's a video game called Zwift, where you actually ride a bicycle on a trainer and you ride
Oh,
in a computer game. And so as a group, we could all get together and ride together like we would outside, but in the game. And when you go up hills, the resistance gets harder. When you go downhill, the resistance gets easier. So it really replicates what's happening in the real world. And we were able to have calls, so we were chatting away while we were cycling. So it was a nice way to break up the monotony of working out in the garage.
I figured some drafting happened, a little bit of passing.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to be able to keep up with Scott Dixon on a bike. That's one thing I learned. Tony Kanaan, he's got some, I think he's training for the Ironman in Kona next spring. They moved it to next spring. So he's looking at that after his last lap this year. So I can't keep up with them. That's for sure.
But it's fun to try.
It is. And it's really good to get, I talked about the community when we were talking about the Race with Insulin program in Novo Nordisk, and that community within the gym and within the drivers, that we were all stuck at home doing the same things. We all wanted to be at the racetrack. We all wanted to be traveling, but it was healthier and safer for us to stay home. And so figuring out how to connect it in that community was really important.
Sounds good. All right. So technology, data, and connectivity are all super important to IndyCar teams up and down pit lane. How does technology, data, and connectivity impact the number 4 Trace Siva team and you specifically as the driver?
Well, like I talked about, my IndyCar is different because my CGM mounts into the cockpit. So being able to see that body data alongside my race car data is what separates my car from any other IndyCar on the grid. And being able to get that data out of the race car at the end of the race and compare performance based on blood sugar levels, based on pit stop times, based on type of racetrack, based on weather conditions. My exercise physiologist built a regression analysis to help me understand the impact of blood glucose on performance. And we've been able to hone my training based on that data. So it's accumulating the data, it's evaluating it, and then getting better because of it.
Now, having been home and accumulating the data since you have the CGM, have you found that your numbers have kind of differentiated from when you were not at home during a regular season?
A little bit. Being at home, I find when I eat at home, it's easier for me to manage carb counting, to be able to, when I eat out and I'm traveling, it's harder to see some of those hidden sugars in meals and I have to make smaller adjustments post meal. Where at home, especially when I was training so hard, it was easier. I found I was more accurate with my carb counts. So that definitely helped. But then the stress of being stuck at home and not being a racetrack was counterproductive as well.
Oh, yeah. All right. So as the season continues and as we ease into, social distancing and getting fans back like me in the stands, how do you think race weekends will be different?
I think this weekend's going to be very different with no fans in the stands. I watched the first NASCAR race, and I think it was Kevin Harvick when he won. He got out of the car and said, "It's so weird to be in victory lane and it be quiet." So for us as drivers, I've already been thinking about what that's going to look like as I'm amping up for the race. But I can't wait until we can find a way and continue to develop protocols to safely and healthily bring fans back to the racetrack, because I do it I love seeing that energy and feeling the energy and that buzz build in the racetrack up to that green flag.
For sure. We're definitely another community for you, Charlie.
Indeed. Indeed.
You have lots of different tribes here.
That's right.
All right. So, couple last questions. One has nothing to do with racing. What is your favorite way to treat a low blood sugar?
So my go-to, I always have a tube of glucose tablets in my pocket, and those are probably my least favorite way to treat a low, but they're the easiest to carry in my pocket, so I always have them with me. When I'm traveling, when I'm at the gym, anytime, I've always got a tube with me. But my favorite are the Cliff blocks, the shot blocks for like runners, because 3 or 4 blocks is right around that 15, 16 grams. Plus, I find that they're pretty fast acting, they're easy to chew, and I can use them if I'm working out. If I'm on a bike ride, I can put them in my jersey pocket. They work if I need them at the racetrack. They ride around in my helmet bag. So even if they get a little sticky when they're hot and melty, but they taste way better than a glucose tablet.
I hear that. My go-to has been 6 jelly beans and I'm golden.
Oh,
I don't need the full 15, like 6 grams and I'm good.
That's awesome. I love that everyone's got it down to like, oh, I take 3.5 of these, right? For me, it's 3 bites of this or 2 chugs of this. So
anymore, and I skyrocket.
Yep.
But yeah, all right. So amazing. So let everyone know how we can follow you this season and beyond on the socials, on TV.
On Twitter, people can, if you'll pardon the pun here and the dad joke, people can keep up to speed with me at Race with Insulin. They can find me on other social media, Facebook and Instagram at Charlie Kimball as well. Like I mentioned, we will be live in prime time on Big NBC Saturday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific, 200 lap race. Tune in. And then July 4th weekend, July 4th, the Saturday, we will be racing at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the road course as part of the Brickyard weekend for the first ever doubleheader with NASCAR. When they're running the Brickyard on Sunday, we'll run the Grand Prix on Saturday. So people can follow that, sign up for a newsletter on my website at charliekimball.com as well.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for your time, Charlie. The best of luck this weekend, and come back and see us soon. We'd love to have you again.
Anytime. It's always a blast, Arlene. Thank you.
Bye, Charlie.
Bye.